Okay, we ready? Everybody good? All right, I have 6:45 on the dot. Good evening. My name is Amy Wolf, and on behalf of the League of Women Voters of Stanislaus County and the American Association of University Women, welcome to tonight's forum. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization that encourages informed and active participation in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League never supports or opposes candidates or political parties. However, in our advocacy capacity, based on our positions, we sometimes recommend yes or no votes on state and local ballot propositions. In our education role, we seek to ensure that voters are provided with ample information to make enlightened decisions, and tonight's forum is an example of our educational efforts. I'll be serving as this evening's moderator. We will hear from 6 of the 8 candidates running for the 2 open seats on the Oakdale City Council. 4 of the candidates here tonight are running for the 4-year term, and 2 of the candidates are running for the 2-year term. I'd like to introduce the City Council candidates here this evening in seated order. Ramona Howard, running for the 4-year term. Farrell Jackson, running for the 2-year term. Dawn Peterson, running for the 4-year term. Cher Barrios, running for the 2-year term. Kathy Morgan, running for the 4-year term. And Tom Dunlop, running for the 4-year term. Michael Murray and Oliver J.R. McCarty were not able to join us tonight because of previously scheduled commitments, and I will be reading a statement from Mr. McCarty a little bit later. I want to go over the format for tonight. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to make an opening statement. Candidates are requested to include their qualifications and reasons for seeking this office. We will then have a question and answer period. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question asked. These questions have been submitted by the audience, and we have more than enough to get through the evening. Actually, so many more that I don't think we're going to ask for any more questions because I've got enough to keep us busy. We will conclude with 1-minute closing statements on what each candidate hopes to accomplish if elected. Our timekeepers will signal 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop. You will be permitted to finish your sentence, but please stop once you've seen the stop sign. We'll now begin our 2-minute opening statements. The order was determined this evening by drawing lots. The candidates will speak in this order for opening statements and then speak in the reverse order for our closing statements. We ask that the audience refrain from any demonstration of support or opposition during the forum. This allows the full time to hear the candidates' views. We will start with Ramona Howard.
Good evening, and thank you to everyone who is responsible for putting this together. As you've heard, my name is Ramona Howard, and I'm running for the 4-year seat of City Council. My family has known Oakdale for about 50 years, although I've lived here for only about 19 of those. And somebody asked me recently why I am running for City Council. They said, "Are you crazy?" I said, because I want to help move the city forward. I do not want us to go backwards. We have so much momentum that I think that the skills that I have would help us. I have experience, creativity, drive, and a deep love for the city. And my goals are to produce a safe and clean community. And I've done that through a variety of programs, volunteerism, asking other people to volunteer. We need to work on a financially stable community, a fun community, and a unique community that people would want to come visit here. That's why I'm running for City Council. I believe I can do those things. Thank you.
Thank you. Farrell Jackson.
Well, good evening. My name is Farrell Jackson, and I am running for the Oakdale City Council 2-year term. I've lived in the city of Oakdale for almost 50 years. I married my high school sweetheart. We have 2 wonderful children. We have 2 grandchildren that still live in the city of Oakdale. And so I do have a vested interest in seeing and ensuring that Oakdale is prosperous now and in the future. My motto is, We need to unite and not divide. There's a clear division amongst the city council, the city employees, and some of our residents. This is not a healthy situation for our town. It hampers forward progress and deflates morale. Oakdale's image should be positive. We need to maintain pride in our community, and my proven leadership and experience will move us forward in a positive direction by creating more jobs, having a balanced growth plan, by maintaining and restoring city services, and getting our water and sewer enterprise funds under control. I worked for the industrial company of Procter & Gamble for 20 years. My job was to oversee the mechanical maintenance department for the entire plant. I ran a $12 million budget. I always came in on budget. I have been a council member for 2 terms, 2 consecutive terms. I've been a mayor for 1 term. And so I think I can use my experience in all those facets to further Oakdale and make us prosperous, and I will do that by working together with everyone on the council and the citizens to ensure that that happens. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Peterson.
Thank you, and good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for making this possible and inviting us all this evening. Don Peterson is my name. I've lived here for 9 years with my wife, Joni, and you know, I guess I should say before it becomes obvious, I have never held public office at all. What I have done is started out years ago graduating with a degree in psychology from Eastern Washington University now. Since that time, I've built my own company, which I started in Modesto in 2002, building and operating quality assisted living facilities, providing services to the elderly. I didn't do that all by myself. I did it with the help of 330 some employees that are still there. We ended up selling our companies, 5 of our 6 companies in April, and still are providing services in Antioch in an assisted living community there. I have been involved in leadership for 40 years now, 40 years in health and personal care administration, government relations, public policy, risk management, and have planning experience in mid-sized to large-size companies. I currently serve as the board chairman. I guess I could describe myself as being actively retired. I work harder than I ever did. I just don't get paid anything anymore. But I have always been involved in leadership positions. I'm currently the board chair of the California Assisted Living Association. In that association, I've been a member of the public policy. Currently, I'm on the healthcare reform task force for that organization, and am involved in the Accountable Care Organization work group. That's it for now. There's more, but my wife says I should be humble.
Thank you. Cher Barrios.
Good evening, Oakdale. My name is Cher Barrios, and I'm running for the 2-year, this seat right here, City Council here in Oakdale. I will bring passion, collaboration, and your voice here to this seat. My family's been in Oakdale since 1946 on the Oakdale Waterford Highway, and we still have that business going, and I bring a lot of hard work and dedication to this town. I love Oakdale. We all love Oakdale. Currently, I'm coaching 2 soccer teams, under 6 and under 10s. So I'm learning the different levels and what it means to teach them teamwork, and I like to watch them grow throughout their years. Our kids are our future. I want to make sure Oakdale grows just enough to give them a place to raise a family of their own and enjoy life. So thank you very much, and thank you for coming.
Thank you. Kathy Morgan.
Hi, my name is Kathy Morgan, and I am right now sitting on the Oakdale City Council. I am near the end of my 2nd term after having served nearly 8 years. Prior to that, I served on the Parks and Rec Commission for 7 years, which was an appointed position by the City Council. And prior to that, my kids were in school, so I served in different capacities in the school district. And the final one was as the academic booster president for the Oakdale High School, which was a very rewarding position to be in and work with a great group of people. I believe I have great communication skills. I do, like all of us, love this city. When our family decided to move to Oakdale, my husband had gotten a job transfer to Lathrop, and for several months he commuted from 3 hours, and we kept looking for the right city to move to. And 24 years ago, when we pulled into Oakdale and picked up our first Oakdale leader and read all about this family-friendly community, we knew Oakdale was where we wanted to live and where we want to serve, because I believe that giving back your time is a really important key factor in, creating the kind of community we all love to live in. I think the job that I started hasn't finished yet, and it's due primarily to this great recession that we're all experiencing. I would like the opportunity to finish this job, and I stand by all the decisions I've made on the council. My friends and family were surprised I'd run a third term. I was a little surprised too, but I had this sense of civic responsibility, and I believe that I need to do the right thing, and that is to spend another 4 years trying to get our city, and I believe we will, become financially responsible, fiscally sound, and prosperous. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom Dunlop.
Of course, as mentioned, Tom Dunlop. I am also currently serving on the City Council. I've lived in Oakdale 23 years. I grew up in East Modesto. Ran around with a lot of kids involved with FFA here locally, and of course all the Waterford and Oakdale and East Modesto kids run together. So I'm been around a long time locally here. I graduated from Fresno State University with a degree in animal science, agricultural science. I went to work for a local dairyman as his Stanislaus County manager. I manage all the operations in Stanislaus County, and I currently still serve there. I've been a constant manager, but now I'm more of a general manager. We have grown several operations here locally. I spend a lot of my budget here in town and very connected to the business community. I've also, serving on the council currently, I've been an advocate for business and jobs in the community. I've also have a keen understanding of regulations and how they affect the business in businesses here in Oakdale, and have experienced a lot of those regulations myself. And one of the reasons I'm running again is we have a general plan that's getting near finished, and there's rules and regulation, environmental policies in that document that will affect our ability to bring jobs to Oakdale, bring houses to Oakdale, and numerous things we need to do. So I'm running for a second term to continue to be an advocate for jobs and business in Oakdale, and to finish that general plan and put into place a better retail and commercial environment in Oakdale. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to read a statement from J.R. McCarty, who is not able to join us tonight. Dear AAUW and League of Women Voters, I would like to thank the AAUW and the Stanislaus County League of Women Voters for the invitation to come to your forum. Unfortunately, I am unable to make tonight because I had already committed to another appointment. I would like to take a minute to explain who I am. I was born and raised here in Oakdale and also work in this great city. My wife and I have raised our 2 sons here who currently attend the high school. I've been involved in youth sports programs for the past 12 years. On July 2nd, 2012, I was appointed city treasurer. Over the last 3 months as treasurer, I have been able to get the city up to date with the treasurer's reports, which were behind 18 months. I am running for city council because I believe we need a new direction for Oakdale. We need leaders that listen to what the citizens are saying. My topics that I strongly believe in are public safety, jobs, a plan for Measure O, and no on privatization of our public works. Thank you once again for your invite and your time. And with that, we'll now begin question and answers. So many to choose from. All right, so first question, which we're going to start with Farrell Jackson. Explain your position on farming out the Public Works Department.
You know, one, I'm not in favor of privatization. I mean, it would have to be a major amount of savings in order for that to happen. probably 25%. You've heard the number thrown around, 10 or 15%. I just think that part of my goal is to create jobs in the city of Oakdale, and when you farm out or privatize the public works department, you end up losing 30-something jobs. And that just goes against my grain, because these folks, the majority, I would venture to say that 29 of those 30 folks live in the city of Oakdale. And so they spend their money here, and they buy their houses, they buy their cars, and they support the town by spending and creating sales tax dollars for the city that supports businesses, but also it brings revenue back into the city, which then supports the general fund, which supports police and fire and various other things. So I am totally not in favor of doing that. I just don't think it's productive for our city. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Peterson.
Well, I certainly agree that at this point in time in budget preparation, we're dealing with the rather heartless task of putting together numbers and trying to balance budgets. I think that the council has a responsibility to at least evaluate the alternative and see, okay, as Mr. Jackson says, we've heard 10, 15%. The truth is nobody knows whether it would save money or whether it wouldn't. And I realize that just making the effort to analyze it causes anxiety, but I think we do need to look at it and see what makes sense and take action as the numbers would tell us.
Thank you. Chair Barrios?
I believe we should keep Oakdale, Oakdale. And so I don't agree with prioritization, and I think we should keep our public works here.
Thank you. Kathy Morgan?
This is an issue that I weighed kind of long and hard, because it's something that we brought forward in the council, and I did vote no against it. I have seen some benefits in going forth with the RFP process and finding out exactly how public works runs and who does what and what responsibilities belong to which division. And so in that way, I think that this is eventually, I'd be surprised if we got the savings that we would really like to have. I'm really not fearful that we're actually going to wind up going to privatization. I believe that it's going to help us to streamline the whole department and get efficiency up to where it needs to be, and job responsibilities delineated to those individuals that will continue serving in the public works as workers here. So we'll wait and see.
Thank you. Tom Dunlop?
I currently serve on the council. I voted yes to start this process. Many use take an easy answer, but I've been having to balance the budget, and no one would like to let people go, and the purpose of this is not necessarily to privatize, but it is to analyze what we're spending our money on. Last time I checked, nobody voluntarily gives the city of Oakdale money. Taxes are collected. In fact, we're collecting an extra $1.2 million to $1.4 million. I've been charged with the responsibility of making sure that's spent correctly. I don't know where this process will go, but we are going to have open public meetings and evaluate it on an individual basis. And I've already said, if you can't measure it, we can't manage it. And this is a process of determining what is needed to do the jobs that we have in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Ramona Howard?
The simple answer is no. The more complicated answer is, until we get the RFPs back and analyze the cost savings and then analyze the other factors that are there, we can't tell you. No one can sit up here and say this is a good thing or a bad thing. The bad thing for Oakdale is those employees live here. Now, what I do believe is taking some of those items that we've already kind of thrown by the wayside. Street sweeping is a good example of, and we outsource that because we're not getting that done now. So there are some aspects of this, and like I said, once we get the RFPs back and really analyze where we can save money without cutting the jobs, then the council can make an informed decision. Right now, it's all guesswork. And I don't make any decisions based on guesswork. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, and we will start with Don Peterson. What are your thoughts on the North County Corridor suggested routes and their impact on Oakdale?
Well, first of all, I think that we desperately need the corridor. You know, I think there's much that depends upon it. At last night's meeting, we heard that the existing traffic accidents on 108 coming through here is 35% higher than the state average. We need to be able to move goods and services if we're ever going to have any hope of having a functional industrial park, which brings jobs, so I think that's important. I also heard some very touching testimony from people that live on the current route out there off Stearns Road, where there was a problem with notification. They're concerned about losing their homes, having property split. Those are real concerns, and you know, I think that they're going to have to be dealt with compassionately and analyze it and look at that route and the impacts on people's lives as well as the economy of the area. But we do need it.
Thank you. Cher Berrios?
Well, years ago, when I first heard of this, I thought, wow, that's cool. Freeway in Oakdale, right? We can have big shopping malls and that type of deal. Well, that was years ago. After speaking to one of the local dairymen, you know, it could go on his property. And I thought, well, would I want that on my property, on our property, being here since 1946? So I'm going to wait till all the facts come in and then make my decision on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Morgan?
The North County Corridor was started in late, I believe, 2008, 2009. And it's a process. It's going to take several years to get to where we need to be. There was originally, I believe, 18 different routes involved in the North County Corridor, and it was narrowed down for many reasons. Different areas that weren't going to work for different reasons. There are two ending routes. One is Stearns and one is Womble. I almost said Lancaster. Womble. Womble goes right through Birchall Nursery, which employs many people and is a big business in our region. Stearns is going to impact people as well. It's going to be really hard making the final decision, but one of the reasons for choosing Stearns is because we have, you know, it needs to have a specific plan, which has commercial, and then we've got the 450 acres in the South Industrial Plan, and the way it's routed is going to benefit in the long term Oakdale with jobs and sales tax revenue, and so we'll have to wait and see.
Great, thank you. Tom Dunlop?
My answer is very short. I am personally affected by the North County Corridor. My business is going to be the westbound lanes. So I am currently conflicted out, as well as the change to the SR 219. I also received material from that widening as a recycler, so I am currently conflicted out in this matter.
Thank you. Ramona Howard?
Growth is inevitable. The problem with Oakdale is we can't stay that small, teeny bedroom community with no retail, no major manufacturing. This is the shape that we're in because we haven't had proper development before now. Now, the good thing about the bypass, regardless of which way it goes, is we have kind of a look into the future of the main street that's going to come through there, the main highway. And we can begin planning now. So I am going to reserve my thoughts on which one's a better one because I don't know. I haven't reviewed all the information. But growth is inevitable. And we have to embrace it, and we have to come together as a community and figure out what works best for us. I certainly don't want anybody to lose their houses, but at the same time, we have to be realistic. Thank you.
Thank you. Farrell Jackson?
I was on the original Joint Powers Authority. I was a representative for Oakdale when this started 4 or 5 years ago, and with it being called the North County Corridor. I was able to get us $91 million to build Oakdale section and to further the corridor itself. I did that because I feel strongly that Oakdale needs it. We have two major highways converging in our town, plus another state road coming in from the south. There's so much traffic on 108 that we just had a gentleman that was, we have pedestrian accidents all the time, and I want to say I'm sorry to the gentleman's family that just was ran over, but we need to do something to mitigate the traffic. The North County Corridor will do that. It will also bring it in close to Oakdale so that we can have access to our industrial area. That's very important. We need that 20-minute connection to Highway 99. We are going to get this, and that's what's going to make our industrial area successful. Now, I heard also from some folks the other night that did on the Sturgeon's road route, and they did not get notified. That is something that's totally wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question. We'll start with Cher Berrios. The costs of benefits to retiring employees has long-lasting effects. How can these costs be controlled?
We can take a stance and plan rather than doing it. Plan sooner than later. That's all I have to say.
Perfect, thank you. Kathy Morgan.
Some of the costs can't be controlled. They're already dedicated to these employees who have faithfully served. We can negotiate so that we can, for the future, we've created a two-tier system for all future employees that will be hired in the city. We all know that sometimes when decisions were made when we were very prosperous, we don't often think about sustainability for the future. I think we all are feeling that now, but sometimes when you give something, you can't take it back. So we just have to move forward in the future, trying to do the best we can, and increasing our general fund revenue is an important key factor to that.
Thank you. Tom Dunlop.
The city has been currently working on, it was mentioned already, the two-tier system, which reduced pension costs for new employees, I think over 50%. But the lay of the land keeps changing from the state. Recently, the governor just signed a pension reform bill that mandates employees in the future have a pension system, a second tier, and also froze the pensions of everybody currently serving, that now they can't change it as well as the city can't change it. And also mandated that they pay public safety 12% of the cost of their. So the state has moved forward. Is that enough long term? Probably not. It's probably going to be something that we have to deal with in the future. But at least I'm hopeful that the state, because the state really controls us more than the city does, that the state is moving forward as something to help give us some relief long term and shelter us from skyrocketing costs, which have in the past been upwards of 4 or 5% a year.
Thank you. Ramona Howard.
Unfortunately, we can't go backwards and change those mistakes made. We can't take retirement money away from employees that have worked hard for that. Like my fellow candidate said, we did go to a two-tier system, which did help a bit, and I know the city is currently negotiating with employees and unions. That needs to be continued. However, we need to look at the future with, as employees retire, what can we do with those positions that prevent us from having to pay those huge PERS dollars? Do we hire 2 people part-time for the price of 1? This is the only way the city's going to get by until the economy picks up. I don't believe that we should let employees go. Thank you.
Thank you. Farrell Jackson.
Repeat that whole question for me.
Absolutely. The costs of benefits to retiring employees has long-lasting effects. How can these costs be controlled?
Well, the governor's made a major step in signing off on the pension reform. That in itself, I believe the major reform needs to come at the state level, because our hands are tied at the city level. We cannot change the 3 at 50. We can only make the changes like on new employees. We started this 3 years ago. It's finally took effect, I think, last year, but it's going to be many years before the payout is seen with the two-tier system, which means new employees have a different system than the existing employees. I don't think it's right to take away what has been promised to employees as far as benefits. I would say that we need to negotiate in good faith and openly, and say, hey, what can we do with the health care end of it? Because that's really where a major portion of the cost comes. Not in salaries, not so much retirement, but it's in the health care cost. And that is rising every day, and maybe there's one health care plan that can work for everyone that is more feasible than some of the unbalances that we have today. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Peterson?
Well, I think, first of all, I mean, it's a horrible problem. There is no good answer to it. People made decisions to take one job within city government, state government, based on the salary and the benefits that they were promised. It's a problem. I don't think we can take our commitments back that we've made to people. People are doing, I think, what can be done with the tiered system. I think that if and when the economy improves, it's going to help out a great deal, because a lot of those contributions come from the investment returns that PERS makes, and it's an investment. If the stock market continues to go up, that's going to ease that issue as we go forward. I think that's about the best answer I can come up with.
Thank you. Next question, and we're going to start with Kathy Morgan. Do you think LAFCO's new ag land mitigation will affect Oakdale's future growth? Please explain.
Well, if you look at the way we're doing the general plan, I don't think we're going to be impacted that much. I think it's really a safeguard around Oakdale, and that's pretty much my answer.
Thank you. Tom Dunlop.
It is, luckily, Oakdale in the past, we've been working on it for a while, but the last 4 or 5 years, we have annexed nearly 450 acres already to the south of town on Yosemite on the way out south. That is currently already annexed. The Area 11, which is the F Street corridor leaving to the east, has been annexed already. The LAFCO rules, the mitigation rules, are pretty strict, and they're going to really hinder cities from annexing any more property. Number one, it's a one-for-one swap. So if you annex 1 acre, you have to provide 1 acre of farmland preservation forever, or you have to get a community vote to take out farmland and annex it, which is always difficult in the valley, or you have to show some kind of historical boundary of the city that is allowable. Those things are going to complicate the issue of bringing more retail. Enacting our current general plan update is going to be hard to enact.
Thank you. Ramona Howard?
I agree with Tom on this one. Luckily, Oakdale annexed a bunch of land previously, and we have a lot of room to grow without going beyond that. So until I get on council and can really dig into this, that's about all I can say. Thank you.
Thank you. Farrell Jackson?
It most definitely will affect any future annexations, because the rule says that you have to have one-to-one mitigation as far as farmland. That means somebody has to provide that farmland into perpetuity, and that would be the developer. Well, it's going to be difficult for a developer to do that. In my prior service on the council, we had the forethought to annex 450 acres to the south, 182 acres on the east F Street corridor, and 30 acres out on the west side of town by Crane. Okay, those properties are ready to go. There's no going before LAFCO. Thank goodness we did that, because we were looking forward. And this is going to be what we need to attack for our future jobs, because running and jumping through the hoops that LAFCO's putting up before us is going to be very, very difficult. Not impossible, but very, very difficult. It will take a vote from the citizens in order to grow. You'll have to mitigate ag land, and you'll also have to create future boundaries for a certain amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you. Don Peterson?
Well, I think the question's been pretty well covered by everybody that's been involved in the process. I don't have a lot to add other than the fact that sometimes there is good that comes out of problems and challenges like this. We've lived in metropolitan areas as well as rural areas, and I think it's always a good idea to at least look at infill opportunities for development, adjusting height restrictions up rather than out. Farmland is valuable. I think that it needs to be looked after and some concern taken about that without totally restricting development and growth of the community. I think we're a long way from that here in Oakdale.
Thank you. Chair Berrios?
So there's a lot I have to learn yet on this. And what I do like to bring forward with this is that I want to bring businesses to Oakdale and be the person that helps cut out the red tape and make us business friendly. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question, which we're going to start with Tom Dunlop. Oakdale has been without a city manager for several years. What suggestions do you have to attract a full-time city manager?
Well, currently with most cities' economic issues, city manager is a pretty thankless job because, number one, it's a constant renegotiation with employees, which is very taxing on a manager and strains the relationship between the employees and the manager. So currently, if you look around, there's very few managers out looking for a new windmill to tilt and that want to take on a challenge. I think in Oakdale, it's not the fact that we can't necessarily find one, is that we've made a conscious decision to save money. Managers are extremely expensive. We've been using retired annuitants that have no retirement cost, no health care cost, and basically they're about the same dollar per hour salary as the original manager. So there's a great deal of savings. There's probably a 50 to 60% savings per individual. We've been limping along that way, but I believe when a new council is seated, that their priority has to be to rebuild our management team to manage the city and manage the money and keep from having some of the difficulties we're having now.
Thank you. Ramona Howard?
I look at this past year as a blessing that we didn't have a city manager who was set in his ways. We had 3 heads working on a huge problem, and I believe they were doing the job of 5 or so people at a huge cost savings. So I look at this as an opportunity to now take the hard work that they gave us, they kept us from going bankrupt, and building on that and finding a good city manager that fits into our new plan. I don't think it's something that should be rushed into. However, I do agree with Tom that the new council is the ones that need to make that decision. They have to work with that person for the next 4 years. So thank you for waiting on that.
Thank you. Farrell Jackson.
We absolutely need a city manager, a permanent city manager. We need to find a person that's talented. But when we do the interviews, we need to have our employee groups heavily involved because he interfaces with them much more than the city council does. And so they need to approve of what this guy's personality, the way that his thoughts. And so we need to, in order to attract a good city manager, we need to promote the city of Oakdale. We need to show him the good things. I mean, not everything in this town is bad. There's a lot of good happening in the city of Oakdale compared to other cities. One of the things with this, even the unwinding of the redevelopment agency, it's not as bad as most cities. We are in better shape, and so when a city manager, a prospective city manager comes in, he's going to look at things like that. He's going to look at the finances, and he's going to say, hey, is this community together, and is this council together? So I think that's what we need to do.
Thank you. Don Peterson.
Well, I've spent my career hiring general managers and people of the caliber of city managers. And it's imperative that we find the right person for this job. I've mentioned in other forums, if you take a look at the organizational chart of this city, it's running with a temporary community development and planning director. It has no public works director. It has no fire chief. It's contracted from the county. the city manager is temporary. Now, as good as these council members and all of us would-be council members are, you know, we need some Indians around here. We got enough chiefs, and that has to come from the city manager so that they can hire the people below them and form a team to keep this city running. Thank you.
Thank you. Sheriff Barrios.
So bringing in a new city manager that's strong and believes in Oakdale and able to get along and work with all of us on the city council is very, very important, and what we need to keep moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy
Yes,
Morgan.
we need a city manager. But I, too, am very grateful for the three gentlemen who have stepped up and really guided this city through not several years. It's been just over a year and a half that we haven't officially had a city manager, and brought us to this point where we now have a much broader, bigger picture of what actually is going on in our city financially and in every other aspect. This new city manager will need to have some very strong qualities to bring to this job. Great communication skills, strong leader, strong leadership qualities. And I hope that this new city manager will want to move to this wonderful community. So yes, we do need to show this new city manager all that we have to offer. And there is a great deal that Oakdale has to offer. And we, as a council that's seated right now, did choose to wait. We've been taking applications for quite some time, I believe about 9 months. But it is not fair to the new council that will be seated, if there are changes, and there at least has to be one, to choose a manager that they will work with. So that's one of the reasons we're waiting until after the election.
Thank you. Next question, and we will start with Ramona Howard. How has the contract with the firefighters impacted the future financial picture of the city?
Well, I do believe it saved some money, so it has impacted us a bit. I apologize because I'm not that informed on the contracts, what the contracts say. I haven't been involved in the employee negotiations, so I will have to refrain from giving any guesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Farrell Jackson.
Well, it's saved on the cost of a chief because it's a shared chief through 3 different departments. It's also cut down on staffing a little bit. I think there's 14 or 15 firefighters. There used to be 16. So it's allowed them to operate with 2 stations, because with a 3-man station at a 3-man engine company at our primary station, because of the work that I was able to do with Oakdale Rural in combining resources with them. So it's allowed that. And it's also has kept station number, I don't know if it's 4 or something, the Willowwood station. It's kept that open with a 2-man engine company. And so I think it works, and I think these partnerships are something that we need to look at in the future, because that is the way of the future, because money's tight in just about every jurisdiction and every district. And if it makes a good fire system, creates a good fire system, as good or better maybe than what we had, then we need to continue to look at them.
Great, thank you. Don Peterson.
Thank you. I am really not privy to the details of the contract, other than the issues of consolidation and partnerships and cooperation. I think that is the wave of the future. It obviously makes sense, if you're going to share administrative experiences and keep firefighters on the job. I think that makes sense. But I'll have to pass on the details of the contract because I've never seen the contract.
Thank you. Sheriff Barrios.
So growing up in the home, my brother is a firefighter and he used to work for Oakdale Rural Fire Department. There was always Oakdale Rural and Oakdale City. He's now in Modesto, but coming together is probably a challenge for them, but we're all Oakdale and they're all Oakdale. So.
Great, thank you. Kathy Morgan.
This working together has been a great benefit to the city, and the willingness of these departments to come together in a partnership and create this contract that's going to not only benefits our city but benefits the region has been a blessing. No one wants to shut down a station or lose employees, so this solves some of the challenges we were facing in the future, and I know it is the wave of the future, these partnerships and collaborations. It is more regional, but it is still Oakdale, and all of our firefighters know that we do care about them and appreciate all their service that they give to the community.
Thank you. Tom Dunlop?
Yes, I've been involved with the negotiations from the very beginning. I've been at every meeting, and we've worked through a lot of processes, a lot of challenges. When you bring 3 governing bodies, Consolidated Fire, as well as Oakdale Fire Protection District and the city, there were some contentious moments. We also were able to get the labor groups to buy into our plan, which has saved us, over the last couple of years, hundreds of thousands of dollars, and have done what employees have always asked for: is we're less top-heavy. For the number of firefighters between the three groups, we just don't need that much management. So currently, Oakdale pays for what we use. We don't have any extra capacity in management. We have just enough to get by. And then with our current economic conditions, we have brought together a team which we have benefited the rural district, which is in severe financial difficulties, as well as the entire East County.
Thank you. Next question, and we will start with Farrell Jackson. Do you have a plan for street repair in Oakdale?
Our streets need a plan. They're very terrible. One thing that we're not doing that we used to do is do the maintenance on the street, crack sealing. We need to get back to crack sealing because that extends the life of your road by a good 10 or 15 years. That's not happening now. Okay, why it isn't, I don't know. We should have the money to do that because we do get funds from STANCOG, CDG, Community Block Development Grant Funds, and we also get gas tax funds. What we need to do is, whoever our representative is for STANCOG, they need to be fighting for that money, and they need to be getting our roads on the list to be repaired. I don't know if that's happening now. And the reason I say that is because I believe only in the last couple of years there's maybe one road that has been repaired. In the period between 2006 and 2010, there were 16 roads repaired in the city of Oakdale. So that would be my plan, is to work with STANCOG and get more money.
Thank you. Don Peterson.
Well, I think that what we're all faced with right now is taking a look at the budget and the money that we have. One of the strengths that I've seen that we do have is we're very strong in producing gas tax. Matter of fact, I think we have the highest percentage of revenue coming from gas tax of any of our neighbors. And even it's been indicated there's a shortage of service stations here. We could use more to produce more gas taxes. So I would agree that there should be money available to keep the streets repaired. And I don't have a specific plan, but, as I said, there's plenty of gas tax being produced in this city.
Thank you. Chair Berrios.
So plans for the streets, plans for our local businesses, plans for businesses that aren't here yet. I have a lot of plans for Oakdale.
Great.
Welcoming plans.
Thank you. Kathy Morgan.
It has always been one of my priorities is to figure out what happens with our streets and why certain streets don't reach the top of the list. Now, there have been a lot of streets that have been done, and of course Caltrans is in charge of our highways, so they've been done, and Oak Street's been done, and First Street is good, and 6th Street is good. There's a lot of good streets, especially the main arterial streets, but a lot of the other streets kind of get lost in neighborhoods and whatnot. They often take forever to get to the top of the list. So it's one of those things that, yes, I want to get to. I want to figure out why it isn't being done. Is it a lack of staffing? Is it this or that? But as of late, there's been a lot more focus on other issues. And I know streets are important to people, especially those who live in front of the really awful ones. I've complained about 2nd Street since I think I got on the council, and it hasn't hit the top of the list. So when we get our public works back to where it needs to be and we get a proper management in there, it'll be one of the questions that is asked and answered and fixed.
Thank you. Tom Dunlop.
Over the last 4 years, as the budget crunch has become more and more apparent, we burned through reserves trying to keep everybody employed and all the services done that we had promised the citizens. I think the roads have slipped a little bit. We've been, I kind of feel like when it comes to city council meetings, someone's telling me to bail faster and someone's telling me there's another hole to put your finger in over here. I'm starting to run out of fingers. So it's been a challenge for the whole council to really prioritize what we need to do. But I will say that we in the past have taken the idea when we redo a road, we do the total infrastructure. We do the new sewer lines, new water lines, we update the drainage. that has put a severe strain the last few years on the sewer and water accounts, which we are short on. So I think we have to come back up and have a new plan and decide what we can do and what we can replace. Maybe some roads just need to be ground down, resurfaced, redone, and leave the underground alone because we just can't afford it. But maybe other areas we need to change infrastructure and rebuild infrastructure. So that's going to be a public hearing process to find out what we choose to do.
Great, thank you. Ramona Howard.
This is something I hear about a lot. My father-in-law ran streets and maintenance in another town, and every time he comes here, boy, I hear it. Our problem is we can't just do maintenance anymore. Due to the poor management that we've had in years past, the streets have become so bad that you just can't simply go and patch them or do something easy to them. They have to be completely taken up and redone. And a lot of our streets in our town are like that. And like Tom said, what the city has been doing is while a street is up, they've been replacing the infrastructure, which is extremely important. So the other problem we face is we have a small team. Our team is even smaller than it was a few years ago. So we need to come together and we need to work on a plan together on how this can be solved. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, which is going to start with Don Peterson. How do you think the city of Oakdale should handle absent landlords and building owners?
Strictly. I think that, part of the thing that makes a community we can be proud of is to go buy pieces of property that are well maintained, whether they're empty or not. I know we had personal experience in our neighborhood with a foreclosed home, with the bank proudly having a sign on it that they own it, and yet the neighbors were watering the grass, okay, so that we could keep it green and have pride in our community. Whether that's the bank that owns it or who owns it, I think that we need to look at ordinances that are going to treat that and put more pressure on people that own property to keep it safe, to keep it clean and attractive, and have some kind of teeth behind enforcing those rules and regulations.
Thank you. Sheriff Berrios.
I think they should hold the business owners and the people accountable for what they look like, the business, the structures, and make them look proud so that we can invite people to Oakdale, entice them.
Thank you. Kathy Morgan.
I also agree. There needs to be an accountability, and perhaps we need to look at the ordinances we have in place and revise them. And there's only so much we can do by law, though, and that's one of our challenges. There's restrictions with a lot of different things we would like to take care of, certain blights in our community. If it's a health issue, that is definitely something that we can manage. If it's a case of a horrible color on a building, well, that's where the volunteers come in. Mm-hmm. If it's a case of, landscaping problems or whatever, yeah, I think we need to tighten that up a bit because it does affect our neighborhoods and our community and the businesses around a closed entity. And in practice, just taking care of the problem and attaching something to a tax bill. But we do need to look into that a little bit more in the future.
Thank you. Tom Dunlap.
Well, first, I'd like to say I'm a strong advocate of private property rights. And that being said, Oakdale in some ways has never been very friendly to business in our rules. For example, I think currently to paint your downtown building, it's a $1,500 permit, and you have to go through some kind of process to decide if it's the right color. So it's a fine line when it comes to that. I do believe that we need to do something to make everyone in Oakdale, our houses are down 62%, I think last time I checked. I mean, the foreclosed homes are hurting us. But it's a slippery slope, and I think there's another part where we need some public hearings and some city conversation of where that line is and what the expectations of a private property owner should be to maintain his property, because it affects all of us. if you're trying to refinance your house now and the house next door to you is a piece of junk, they ripped the wiring out and the garage door is half torn off, you're not going to get refinanced because, you know, your house may be down 70% today. So it's a hard thing that council really should deal with some clear, straightforward, and concise rules.
Thank you. Ramona Howard.
Wow, well, we all know I'm big on this one. The KFC building on F Street was just repainted and cleaned up. We spent about $250, and the rest was donated to clean that building up to make it take away the eyesore on F Street because of this very reason, absentee landlord. But this topic isn't about absentee landlords. It's about landlords that live here. When we have people in our own city who own homes and rent them out and don't take pride in that property, what does that say? So it has to start from us, and we need to work out. We need strong ordinances. We need an ordinance team that is committed to following up. And if so, we need to put liens on these properties. We need to take our town back. The KFC building sat like that for years before anybody acted. And when Pat became mayor, I called her every month. Did you talk to the landlord? Did you talk to the landlord? Thank you.
Thank you. Farrell Jackson.
You can only do so much as a city, okay, as far as the law will let you do, because there are individual property rights involved. You can't, if somebody decides to let their lawn go brown, then they can let their lawn go brown. Okay, I'm not advocating that that's a good thing. That's not a good thing. But as far as passing an ordinance, we've looked at it many times, and it's not legal to do that. But what we need is a good code enforcement officer that can figure out when it becomes a safety issue. I mean, I think our code now says if the grass is I don't know, so many inches high, like a foot high, then it becomes a code violation. You send the code officer out there, and he cites, and you keep doing that until you get to a point where you can lien the property. And once you can lien the property, because it costs to have that code enforcement officer go out there, you take him to court, and at some point in time, that house is going to sell, and you are going to get reimbursed. So it just takes a concerted effort with the city council and hiring maybe a part-time code enforcement officer, since funds are tight.
Thank you. Next question, and we are going to start with Sheriff Berrios. Do you think Oakdale's sign ordinance serves the city and businesses well? If not, what changes do you recommend?
Absolutely not. I think we need to look at that again. We need to let businesses show what they have to offer so people can see and go in and spend their money here in our lovely town. We need to definitely revisit that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I recognize the sign ordinance has been kind of an issue for as long as I've been on the council and before that. And, you know, I understand the business owner's point of view, and I think it all has to do with safety, you know, where it's placed, where the sign is placed, how the sign looks. There do have to be some guidelines in place that need to be followed, but I don't think we don't have to be as strict as possibly we have been in the past. Little more flexibility, keeping in mind certain issues.
Thank you. Tom Dunlop?
I believe it's definitely something that needs to be looked at, as Councilmember Morgan mentioned before, that it's something that's come up many times, and it is a fine line because you have to worry about traffic, you know, being able to view corners and so forth. But I do agree that, you know, a business has a right to advertise and be effective in its advertising. As a council, I think we're going to be mandated with the fact of what's the limit is, because, you know, there's always enterprising business people that want to put a little bit bigger sign, a little bit brighter, because they want people to come to their business. And as a city, for safety, aesthetics, and a few other issues, we have to kind of come up with a limit, unfortunately, because there's always people that seem to push the limit. And I think we need to revisit it and have some hearings and get the public involved and the business community involved to come up with the answer that serves everyone well.
Thank you. Ramona Howard.
Well, I'm very business friendly. I walk the town probably once a month and talk to the businesses and see what they do, give them some suggestions and so on. But I think we all have to agree. You notice you drive the east side of F Street and it's become flagged city. You know, so I think there needs to be some ordinances in place, and the businesses need to know that they can't push that. because one business puts a flag up, and the next one puts 2, and before you know it, you have 40. And then before you know it, our little town isn't so inviting. So we need to help these businesses come up with creative ways to help their business. And yes, we do need strict ordinances that can be enforced. Thank you.
Thank you. Farrell Jackson?
Well, I am very pro-business, okay? And I believe our sign ordinance is just a guideline. I mean, when somebody has a problem, the city council needs to work with that problem to help them further their business, to bring in businesses for them. A good example is the Cost Less Shopping Center. The manager down in there was saying, hey, my sign is not visible enough, I don't have enough room on the sign, it's not tall enough. And so we worked with that manager. When we got him to relocate his sign, he increased the height of it, and he was able to get more advertising on there, and it became a very good tool for the Cost Less Shopping Center. So I believe that the current ordinance is just a guideline, and so let's work with the businesses to make it work so it works for them.
Thank you. Don Peterson.
Well, I think definitely to be pro-business is an absolute essential position here. I have been a developer. I've built 5 new buildings in Modesto, Manteca, Stockton, Antioch, and they've just ranged to, when the economy is really good, you just get hammered by city councils. You know, in the city of Antioch, for instance, I paid all of our systems development fees, but got charged an extra $50,000 just for the heck of it to build a computer center for the local senior center, which I gladly paid, but the computer room was never built. But I did get a sign, so that's a bit of an expensive venture for signage. They're very restrictive. Now that the economy's bad, you can get a sign approved anywhere. What we need is some simple common sense in negotiating with people, whether it's good business times or bad business times, and realize that government's job is to help, not restrict.
Thank you. Time for the last question, and we're going to start with Kathy Morgan. What would your plan be for the Hershey Visitor Center?
That's a really good question. Ultimately, I don't see the city using it as office space any longer. Ultimately, I'd love to see the economy turn so it's worth more. I think possibly leasing it out to a business that would be interested, that could grow their business and maybe eventually buy it, might be a good idea. Something that would enhance the downtown area and kind of, and there's a lot of things we can probably do with the Hershey. I'm open to ideas and possibilities, and I think just the right business is going to come in there, the right business is going to be able to be qualified to purchase that at some point, and I do think that's where the city needs to go for the future.
Thank you. Tom Dunlop.
Well, it was an asset when Hershey originally built it. It was redevelopment was involved with that building and some granting of land and so forth. Currently, redevelopment rebought it. It was changed into an asset of the city. It's now a city asset. And with our current financial times here back in I think March or April, May, somewhere in that, I brought forth an 8-part proposal. And one of those parts was to sell that building off to pay some of our deferred employee costs. Especially our sick and vacation time that's accrued for employees, to make some changes in how we accrue those and use that money to start paying off employees to get that off our plate. And I stand behind that. I think the building, it was an idea. We tried an idea, didn't quite work out, I don't think, as planned, but we still now have the asset. We basically stole the money back from the state by luck or by gosh. So I think we need to use that asset to benefit the city in somehow, and I prefer just to sell it off.
Thank you. Ramona Howard.
I don't agree with selling it off. We will never get our money back out of that we put into it. It's an asset of the city. We either need to rent it out and make money off of it every month until the economy comes back up, or we need to trade for something better. Something else needs to be done other than just selling it. Somebody's going to get a heck of a deal. I do have some ideas that could go in there. Strong retail, something that can generate not only tax dollars, but a stronger downtown area It's a great building, and we need to utilize it the best we can. Make some money off of it. Thanks.
Thank you. Farrell Jackson.
Well, first off, we need to stop calling it a bad deal and look at it as an opportunity, because we did save the RDA money. We saved the state from taking that money away from the city of Oakdale. You look at it as an investment. One thing I do want to clear up, it's been mentioned that we took it out of the public tax roll. Okay, just to clear that up, you know how much money that is? That is less than a city council member makes per month in his stipend. So that little bit of money is not going to balance our city budget. I would look at leasing it out. I mean, has anybody even approached the Cowboy Museum? Maybe they're interested in leasing it out. It's a nice building. They're always running out of room. They might be interested. How about this new performing arts group that's coming into town? Hey, maybe instead of the Gallo Arts Center, maybe we have the Oakdale Arts Center. So, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities for that building. It's a nice building, and we need to make it an asset and improve upon it.
Thank you. Don Peterson.
Well, it is a nice building. You know, I think the city's in the same position that a lot of us are that bought a home here or any asset. It isn't worth what we paid for it. And what's the answer? We're going to stay here until it's worth what it should be worth, and I think that it doesn't make any sense to sell a thing at a loss. I think the use of it right now is probably not visible to us, but hopefully as the economy improves, there will be demand for that building by private enterprise. It is a beautiful building. If I could figure something to do with it, I'd go talk to the city. But I think that probably eventually it will be taken over by a private enterprise and a private business.
Thank you. Cher Berrios.
I used to work for Hershey, so I'll always see the candy inside there, no matter what it turns into. I think we should have some kind of family entertainment place where our local families can go spend time together in Oakdale rather than going to other towns. Maybe a bowling alley, or somewhere where we can watch our local sports on big screen TVs and enjoy dinner, something like that.
Great, thank you. That concludes our question and answer period. We will now hear a brief 1-minute closing statement from each candidate, and we will go in the reverse order of our opening statements, starting with Tom Dunlop.
Well, I think the past 8 years I've proven to be a business-friendly council member who has worked hard to bring businesses to Oakdale to help them work through the regulations, the complexities of city government, which is sometimes very hard to deal with when you get different answers in different departments, and helping them navigate that. I do believe that my experience in asking the tough questions, how we're going to pay for buildings, and we have a beautiful community center, senior center, all assets that cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to maintain. We need to come up with a plan, and we need to continue with the reforms that are currently underway, the reforms I've been involved with, fire and public works and other things. I believe I have an asset to the council to continue working on these things, which I've already started, and I definitely have one of the better understandings of the general plan and how that will be affected in our future growth. I respectfully ask for your vote on November 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Kathy Morgan.
As you know, we've all said it, we love this community, and if it's my honor to serve once again, I would invite everyone to communicate their concerns, their ideas. I believe that's one of my greatest assets is I'm very friendly. I want to promote business in this town. I want to continue on the road that we have started in recovering from this period of great economic distress. I believe that we don't have to sacrifice our public safety or the quality of life that we have. I'd like to work towards regaining our financial security and stability and promoting the exceptional qualities of the city to businesses both here and those that we want to draw to the community. I believe also that there are times when experience should be counted as an asset and a strength to the city, and I believe I had that experience to move Oakdale forward, and ask that you would cast your vote that I might be able to serve another 4-year term for this city. Thank you.
Thank you. Cher Berrios.
Thank you. City of Oakdale, My name is Cher Barrios, and I want you to share the vision here I have for Oakdale. Make Oakdale business friendly. Keep our streets, our neighborhoods, our families, our kids, our soccer kids safe. Make them want to stay in Oakdale and start a family of their own. Move forward. Move forward, Oakdale. Anyway, thank you for showing up tonight. We appreciate it, and I look forward to serving you.
Thank you. Don Peterson.
Thank you. I have headed up a company since 2002 through last April, building a company through the worst economic times that any of us have seen. We built from 0 to 330 employees during that time, including the last 3 years we increased employees. We did not decrease them. We did work with them. They made commitments to freeze their salaries so that we wouldn't lay people off, and that kind of leadership and cooperation needs to continue. I believe that I have the skills and the abilities, the communication abilities to help this city through some very difficult times. If you think that this city has easy sledding ahead of it, you are greatly mistaken. This is going to take very strong financial leadership, and I believe that I can contribute that to the community that we decided to move to. We were not born here. We chose to move here, and we choose to stay here and represent it well. Thank you.
Thank you. Farrell Jackson.
I believe this 2-year seat is very, very important. Before I get into that, I want to thank the Women League of Voters and the AAUW for hosting this forum tonight. This 2-year seat is very important. I believe it needs somebody that has experience to bring revenues into the city of Oakdale through jobs creation, or, I mean, there's a multitude of things. I want to name a couple, okay? The Tioga connection, connecting water. There's a $100,000 a year just waiting to make a 20-foot connection because we planned for that. I don't know what the hang-up is. It should be done now. Okay, there's a card lock system here in town they're using our roads. They're tearing up our roads. We had to repair one road. We do not get any gas or sales tax from that. We need to find out why we don't. We need to talk to the State Board of Equalization. Something's wrong. We need to also audit our gas tax because the State Board of Equalization does make mistakes. I don't know if we're getting enough. We're getting our full share. There's $350,000 from a landowner that put his money, that was supposed to put money into the general plan. He hasn't done that yet, and the city has subsidized. We need to get those back. My experience lets me be able to do those types of things. Thank you.
Thank you, Farrell Jackson. Ramona Howard.
Like I said in my opening statement, my job is to move the city forward and to create a financially fun, stable community, one that we can all be proud of. Our city's like a beach. Individually, we're just a bunch of rocks, but together, we're a beautiful thing. So keep that in mind as you walk around the streets. What can I do? It's all about us, not I, but we. We need to raise our expectations for ourselves and others and not accept the negative things that are happening in our city. We need to take the responsibility. But more importantly, we need to work together to do it. In business, I learned one very valuable lesson. I don't need to know all the answers. I just need to know where to go to get them. And the people out in our community are where we go to get those answers. Thank you.
That concludes our closing statements. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Stanislaus County and the American Association of University Women, I'd like to thank the candidates for running for office, as well as participating in tonight's forum. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you to the audience, both behind me as well as on television, for attending and taking the time to become an informed voter. And do not forget to vote on November the 6th. Thank you all. Have a safe drive home tonight. Thank you.